Happy New Year! I read 26 books this year, technically 27. Last year I made 2 different videos, the worst books I read of the year and the best books. This year I'm just gonna do one long video that you can play, and I'm gonna go in the order of which I read them, and then I'll let you know if I recommend, don't recommend, gave it a shot, don't want to give it another shot, or gave it a shot, didn't like it, going to give it a second chance. Starting from the top, the first book that I read in 2023 was Jessica John's Bad Cree. Fever Dream has some witchy, supernatural moments in this as well. Really like this. We have a main character who is living in Vancouver, Canada, and she's having crazy dreams. Like dreams where a crow is in it and then she wakes up in her bed with a crow's head. She's like, no, what's going on? And she has to use the witchy powers of her family to sort of solve this mystery. Interesting, fun read. The next book I read is Haruki Murakami's Norwegian Wood. This is my first Murakami book that I read. I ended up reading 2 books by him this year. I really like his work. This is beautifully written. Unfortunate, longing love story, mental hospital, sexy, sad. I don't know if I'd call this sexy, but like a little. There's like a desire element to it that you feel like you shouldn't be feeling, but you feel it. And there's a hollowness to this. There's a sadness to this book as well. It's beautiful. Book number 3 is a book I hated. Oh, couldn't stand it. Kelly Cutrone, If You Have to Cry, Go Outside. If you're not familiar with Kelly Cutrone, she's a TV personality, also a famous publicist. She's known to be brutal and cutthroat. She says mean things. Her book is called If You Have to Cry, Go Outside. My friends and I read this thinking she was going to rip us a new one. She was going to leave me out to dry. She didn't. She didn't yell at me at all. This is way too soft and I'm disappointed in her, and I have no desire to read this or recommend this to anyone. Number 4 is one of the best books I've ever read, Toni Morrison. Going from Kelly Cutrone to Toni Morrison was a crazy jump because she's not traditionally a writer. She writes from a place that isn't even earthly. It's so beyond. Her words read like butter. This is a gift. What she has here is a gift, and I can't believe this is the first book that I've read by her. I plan on reading Beloved, The Bluest Eye. Sula is a novel that takes place in like maybe the early 1920s, and it takes place in the South, in a town, on a hill called The Bottom. There are these 2 best friends that end up becoming absolute enemies. You read it and there's no predicting what is about to happen. You think you kind of have an idea. Nope, batshit. Oh, so good. Then we have my first audiobook. I use Audible for 2 things primarily. If I want to listen to the author tell me their story, that's an Audible choice. The second one is when I'm a snob and I don't want that book to be on my bookshelf. So the next one falls into the second category. I didn't want this to be on my bookshelf. I had too much shame around it, but I was curious. I was curious and I had an Audible credit, so I was like, let's do it. Act like a lady, think like a man, Steve Harvey. It did its job, okay? He's trying to give an insight into how men think, how they operate, the simple creatures of wanting to make sure that they can provide, making sure that they have a career that they feel confident in, that they can feel like they're serving a purpose in the life of a woman. It's fine. I also this year tried to read Why Men Love Bitches. Couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I got maybe a third of the way through. It's just so like, ugh, hurts to read. The next one is also an Audible title, Chelsea Handler. I've never listened to one of her books. I've never read one of her books. This one was Life Will Be the Death of Me and You Too. She talks about her brother who was her person. They were like this and her brother dies. She's like, okay, what do I do now? How do I live when my person dies? And she's funny, so she has a really good sense of humor about the experience, and then has several little side stories along with it. We trail into her more current day, talking about how that death affected her, but just generally enjoyed listening to her speak, and I will absolutely be listening to more of her books. If you don't have Audible, could not recommend it enough. As I said, I have 2 main reasons why I use it. Oh, no, I have 3. I'm sure I'm not the only one that has trouble finding a time and place to read, and I drive a lot in LA, and it took me too long to realize that I should just listen to these titles on Audible instead of getting upset with myself that I'm not reading at the same rate that I was when I clearly had a time and place that I would associate with books. So when I fixed that, I read an extra, I think, 14 books because of that. It made a major difference, and I got to experience so many more stories that I probably wouldn't have gotten to had I not also been listening to audiobooks. And Audible also has They're originals, and you can listen to podcasts too, so you can listen to the At Lexi podcast if you want it. If you haven't tried it before, they gave me a code and a link, so you can text as well as go on the website, sign up, and you get a free trial. And the book that I think you should get Julia Fox's Down the Drain. That is one of my favorite books that I read all year. That was later on in the year, so we'll get to that. But I did want to say that you should check out Audible, and thank you Audible for sponsoring this video. I've loved you since 2017. I will continue loving you. And let's get on to the next book. Had to read a classic, Fahrenheit 451. I had it already downloaded in my library. I figured let's listen to it. I wish I had read it actually. This was a scenario in which I wish I didn't listen to it. It didn't scratch the itch that I wanted it to. Chelsea Handler, so glad that I listened. Fahrenheit 451, no. So that's one that I would give another chance, even though I finished it. Then we have a physical book. I went back. This one of my friends got me for my birthday. The Lovely Bones by Alice the Bold. This story begins, I was 14 when I was murdered on December 6th, 1973. This girl is murdered, and you want to figure out how the town and how her family finds out who murdered her. And it was an engaging, fun story. It's triggering, I'm sure. For any of these books, I'm sure, I don't know how to give trigger warnings. Probably every book that I have in here needs some trigger warnings, so if you're going through something, look up that before reading the book. Sorry, I didn't mean to sound insensitive. I'm like overwhelmed by the amount that I would have to give, but I really liked this. Then this was a new book, Big Swiss, Jen Began, sex therapist, hires our main character to transcribe his sessions. This takes place in Hudson, New York, so right outside New York City. And one of the patients that she transcribes for, she nicknames Big Swiss, and she develops some obsession over her, and then ends up meeting Big Swiss in real life and starts a bit of an affair. And it's scandalous. Then I read Charles Bukowski, Bring Me Your Love. This book is 16 pages. My friend had it sitting on her shelf and she was getting ready, so I opened it up and I read it. I like Charles Bukowski's unapologetic writing. Then we have The Creative Act, Rick Rubin. Rick Rubin released this year, and this is, I would say, an artistic Bible in the sense that you can open it up to any page at any point and you can take what you want, leave what you don't. And it discusses all things creation, you know, as for the concept of when an idea has been developed, if it's your idea and you don't pursue it and you see the idea come out of someone else's brain and you think, oh my gosh, I should have done that. It wasn't really yours, it was the idea's time to come out. So it's a little bit abstract in that way, but I find it to be really interesting and I highlighted a lot in this. It's one of those things that is written so simply that you can think of it as a really obvious thought, but it gives you something to chew on if you allow yourself. Could not recommend this enough. I think anyone could benefit from this. Oof, embarrassing. I have this somewhere. I may have like donated it already. I don't know why I even finished this book. This is The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. I was annoyed at him the whole time. Jen Sincero, you are a badass. I had it downloaded already. A lot of what I did this year was clean up shop in my Audible. I had a lot of books downloaded that I hadn't either listened to at all or hadn't finished, and I wanted to go through and finish them. You Are a Badass is sweet. I'm just a self-help book snob. I only like probably 1 in every 10 that I read. I actually think I took pretty good notes from it, if I remember correctly. If you need a little kick of inspiration or motivation, it's good. Also, a good thing about audiobooks, or even just reading in general, is that if you're in a headspace that you want to get out of, having something in your ear or reading a certain story does put you in that world. So if you want to be in a more positive headspace, reading self-help books just keeps that in the forefront of your brain, which can be a really nice and positive thing, because I found myself, what accent was that? I was finding myself really enjoying my days because I was being positively impacted by the books. So maybe you're a badass I'm being harsh on. After that, I stayed on the self-help train and I listened to How to Win Friends and Influence People and How to Win Friends and Influence People in the Digital Age. No, they were both no's for me. Also, they overlap stories verbatim, especially when you're listening to them back to back. I'm like, I heard this already. I heard this 2 days ago in the other book. Then I listened to a book that was not, I'm not the audience for it, but I did learn something very valuable. And that book is Sexual Intelligence, What We Really Want from Sex. This is great if you're in a relationship that you're not happy with your sex life. I was listening to it just because I wanted to keep up with my reading goal and I already had it downloaded. The one thing I learned is how pregnancy happens and how periods work. And I can't believe that it took me until I was 27 years old to understand the science of a period and of a pregnancy. And so for that, I am thankful to Maddie Klein for that information. And then I listened to Anne of Green Gables. I was feeling nostalgic, and that story is so sweet. It's like Amelia Bedelia or Eloise at the Plaza, just this sort of rambunctious young girl who's really only trying to do good in the world but finds herself in trouble often. And if you don't remember the story of Anne of Green Gables, hey Siri, when does Anne of Green Gables take place? Okay, so it's late 1800s. There's a brother and sister that live together and they want to adopt a boy to help with the yard. Amazing how things have changed. And the man goes to pick up the orphan and they only have a girl. And she's so excited because she's like, I'm getting adopted. I'm so excited. Oh, I'm so delighted. He's like, oh my God, I was supposed to get a boy. There's not a boy. What do I do? And she's like, please. Surprise, they get her. She gets a whole book. The next two, couldn't stand. Visions in Death by J.D. Robb. I think J.D. Robb writes a big series of mystery or crime novels. I do not even remember how this ended up on my Audible account, but I figured I would listen to it. It was a painfully long episode of SVU. I really just wish it was cut in half. Actually, I just didn't even need to listen to it whatsoever. I could have just watched SVU. And the sex scenes were like, has this person even ever had sex? Not fun. And then this was fine. Leanne Moriarty, The Hypnotist Love Story. This woman's a hypnotist and falls in love with a man, and then she feels suspicious about the man and needs to get clarity about the man. There's also a stalker involved. I just didn't care about the story. Now we got to one of my favorite books of the year, as I already touched on earlier, Down the Drain, Julia Fox. Unapologetically honest. Could not make it up if she tried. Stories that were so original that I repeat number two, couldn't make up if you tried. This you have to listen to. You can read if you want, but I thought the listening experience was really enjoyable. She is wicked smart, so crafty, was blessed with the gift and curse of honesty. Oh, she's amazing. I'm such a fan. I learned about her through Kanye West whenever they had those photos released together. She touches on that, but even still, that's like the most teeny tiny part of the book because her life is so interesting that that's not even a highlight. She's fantastic. She is so cool. I love her. I wish she was here right now. I wish she was in this chair. Then I switched gears from the unwholesome life of Julia Fox to Thich Nhat Hanh, a famous Buddhist monk, to his book, The Heart of Buddhist Teaching. It touched on, I don't know if I'm able to say this on YouTube right now because they're being really strict, but this is a book that was written years and years ago, and it touches on Israel and Palestine. And it's amazing. And also I think one of these books touches on it as well. Just, it really is an age-old war, which it's such a shame that we're seeing. This is nothing new. That was sad. That was a sad realization. But this book is touching on Buddhist teaching. A lot of it I think isn't for me, but some of the Buddhist aspects, there's the Venn diagram of how I live my life and the Buddhist teaching, and there is a little overlap, and it was interesting to me. And then I read Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now. I read and listened to both of these. This one felt that we've gained enough knowledge in pop culture and to understand the power of now, or at least be familiar with the concept of the now and the moment, and all we have is exactly this. So I was less interested in this because I felt I have read or thought about this in various ways, whereas A New Earth offered me a lot more, and I think it was timely just for whatever chapter I'm in my life. I loved this. I loved this. I went from self-help to more spiritual, and I think that's more my realm. Self-help is nice when you want to be doing well on the ground on earth. This gives you peace for the beyond. Then I read a classic. I read two classics this year, Fahrenheit 451, I guess three, Sula, and then A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. This is a life story, and every time I try reading a life story, last year it was Middlesex, I think I don't care, I don't care, I don't care, and then I'm so invested that after it's over I miss these characters all dearly. I'm like, oh, what happened to Neely? How is she doing? This book takes place in Williamsburg in Brooklyn in the 40s, so it's a completely different city than it is today. Poor family and how they get by. It's a good one. It's a good one. Then I listened to The Woman in Me, Britney Spears. Had to. I will say, listening to Britney's book after listening to Julia Fox's, I was like, oh, it doesn't put a candle. You know, I'm glad I listened to Britney's, but Julia Fox's book left such a mark. Britney's was just a moment that I wanted to be a part of. Then we have my girl Babbitts. I love Eve Babbitts. I used to be charming the rest of Eve Babbitts. She's one of my idols because she's a genius and she's fun. This book is a collection of all of her published work. So the short stories that she's had in Playgirl or the Washington Post or Vogue, we get to read those. And one of my favorites, oh, not me pulling up to it right now, Gotta Dance. If any straight man is watching this and you want a woman, learn to dance. That's the short of it. That was written in 1989 in Playboy, if you have the book at hand. It's on page 203. The first story is one of the longest, so you think, oh god, I don't know if I have it in me to do this right now. I don't know if I can read it. You can. You can. She's great. Then I listened to Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. I'm sure you've seen this book around. It's really popular right now for a good reason. It's a good story. The book takes place between Boston and Los Angeles, and it starts with these two kids when they're in elementary school. One girl's at the hospital because her sister has cancer, and the other boy is at the hospital because he got into a car accident, and they end up just playing games with each other. He sees her later in life and he's like, let's make a game together. And she's like, no. Okay. Sort of. It's about their relationship. It's a good story because you go through a place of liking both of them and disliking both of them, and I think that's important because that's humanizing them. These are the two books that fall under the I'm having trouble getting through it, but I'm going to give them second chances. Vernon Subtext, and this is the first book of a trilogy. I have this bookstore in my neighborhood that I love the recommendations that I get from the woman that works there, and she never steers me wrong. All the books that she's recommended I really like. She recommended me I Used to Be Charming, I think, and she also recommended me Big Swiss. So I normally like her recommendations. This one, I can't get into it. I gave it a good try. 89 pages, still not there, but I want to keep chugging along because people have to like it if it's made into a trilogy, and I trust her. It's the story of this guy who's friends with a rock star, and basically the rock star sort of pays for his life, and then the rock star dies and he loses all his money because he's not having this rock star support him anymore, so suddenly he's homeless. This takes place in Paris, and that sounds gripping enough, but I can't get there. The other book that falls into this category of gonna give it a second chance is Jitterbug Perfume. One of my friends told me this is his favorite book of all time, and I loved Even Cowgirls Get the Blues by Tom Robbins. If you've never read anything from Tom Robbins before, he's funny. He's politically incorrect, so his books are not going to age very well, and they haven't aged well, but he's funny, and he does a really good job at detailing absurdities. And this book, there's 3 different time frames. We have this one girl in Seattle who is interested in this perfume somehow. Then we have the perfume makers of the Jitterbug perfume, and then some story that's taking place back in, I don't even know, storybook times. I don't know what era that is. They're all gonna connect. I just can't tell if I care. But my friend said this is his favorite book. So similarly, I'm confused. Also, since I liked another book by the same author. So I'm 67 pages in. But look at this typeface, it's so small. And I'm so picky about typefaces. Like, I like when something has big margins and bigger than 12 font. Like something like this. Oh, that's good. This is ideal. Thank you, Big Swiss. Thank you, Jen Vegan. And then the book that I finished on New Year's, which I'm going to include because I'm already here, is what I talk about when I talk about running. This is Haruki Murakami. He did Norwegian Wood. Norwegian Wood is fiction. This is nonfiction. He, in his personal life, is a runner. A very, very avid runner. Runs every single day. Runs 1 marathon a year. He discusses his running in a literal way, but also in a metaphorical way, and the lessons that it's taught him. As someone who's been a runner in the past, I don't run nearly as much as he does, but I've run a half marathon, and I could relate to what he's saying and the experience that you have with yourself while you are running. There's something profound that can happen. If you run, you will know. And it was a bit dry, but I liked it. I liked it because it was him, and there's something beautiful about getting to know someone in an intimate way. Julia Fox, you get the whole picture. You get dirty details, but that doesn't feel like it's his personality. I feel like he did get vulnerable with us, even though if Julia Fox wrote this book, it'd be like, you didn't tell us anything. But Haruki Murakami told us this book, and it gave me a lot. I want to read more by him this year, more by Toni Morrison. I would easily read A New Earth again. Like I have this on Audible as well. When I want to be in this headspace, I'm just gonna put this on. I really, this one touched me. I want to read a couple Chuck Palahniuk books. I want to read another Bukowski. I want to read The Big Sleep. Maybe another Didion. For nonfiction books, I want to read Grit. And I'm currently reading a horror novel called The Cirque. Can't tell if I like it yet. I'm sure I'll talk about it in a video soon because I have so much that I want to talk about. So much has been on my mind because I haven't been on YouTube much. Also, my outfit. I wanted to show you my outfit. Look at this button down. It's from a little French brand. And then I have this skirt that I thrifted in Madrid. This outfit was picked out by my friend Rebecca. It's gonna be on this week's episode of Pick My Fit. It was cold though, so I put these pants underneath it. And then I have my Paloma wool boots. It's oversized, it's comfortable. I'm excited just to put on outfits and read books and make money this year. Those are my goals. If you guys have any recommendations you think I would like, if you read any of these books and you feel similarly or differently, let me know. Can't wait to chat. If you guys want to sign up for Audible, I will have the information linked below and then also the information here again for you. Happy New Year. See you again on YouTube soon. Bye.